Well, good morning, everybody. My name's Kris, and I'm so glad to get to be at Journey today. Been here a couple of times in travels in my past. Pray for you guys often. It's a favorite place of mine because I'm getting to hang out with some family members. My sister Kim and brother-in-law Rob live here, getting to spend some time with them, and those are some of my favorite people on planet Earth. Thanks for letting me hang out with you today. I don't guess you probably came to hear about me today, so we'll jump right in because lunch follows this, and so that's really important. And here we go. I want to talk to you about the subject today that kind of hits all of us at some point in some way at different levels. I want to talk to you about the subject of frustration. Now, some of you have already experienced this today. By the time you got here, you've already experienced frustration, maybe more than once, and it could be because of the person you're sitting beside. But we're going to put all that behind us because we're better people than to let that hang around, and you've still got the way home. You can have it resurface. Frustration, if you don't know what it is, and I suspect you do, but here's the definition. Throw it up on the screen for you. We would say that frustration is the feeling of being upset or annoyed. So you guys get that part. If we finish it out, it explains some of the reason why. The feeling of being upset or annoyed, and it's because of the inability to change or to achieve something. In other words, I want something the way I want something, and it's not happening, and I don't like it, and it frustrates me. Anybody ever experienced that this week? Some of you tried to get somewhere the last couple of days and noticed that school traffic was back. There's some of you who said words that were a sign of frustration. Some of you waved to people in ways that you should not have. If you want to understand frustration, if you went just into Jackson and decided I'm going to drive all the way through town and I'm going to follow Highland all the way up, all the way down, you would understand, you will understand, you have understood frustration. Now, if I were to say to you, do you think you can get from here and just follow it all the way through to the south end of town? Do you think you'll catch every light green and that no one will slow you down? None of us would completely expect that. But we usually say that frustration is an unmet expectation. And so when somebody pulls out in front of you, or when somebody slows you down, or when all 47 of the lights are red when you get to them, frustration happens. There evidently was an expectation that wasn't met, even if you didn't know it was an expectation. If somebody drives really slowly, you know what you call people who drive really slowly? We call them idiots. Because you just go, I don't care if you drive super fast, but just drive the speed limit, for the love of God. Come on. Even though you don't have somewhere to go, I do. Or if somebody goes around you like they're a bat who has been released, you know what you call them? Maniacs. People who drive faster than you are maniacs, slower than you are idiots. If they drive really fast and really slow, we call them maniacs or iliacs. I don't know. I was just making that up. It's not Wikipedia, but it could be true. But when that happens, frustrations go up. And I don't know how to control all that. I don't have like a message on how to never be frustrated again, because if I did, by the time I finish, you'd be frustrated with me. And so I'm not even going to try. But I do want to talk about one spot in life where frustration grows. It's been happening through the course of time, and when it happens, it's a lot more devastating than just a person driving the wrong speed or a light that turns red. It's where I want to dig in today. Now, when I was growing up, my dad was a pastor, which meant we were just weird. That's what you get out of that, a weird family. Every now and then we moved around a bit, and every now and then somebody would invite him to come back to a church where we had attended. I was just a kid. We'd go back, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have the same memories my parents did, but there were always a few people that stood out in your mind even after you'd moved away, and I'd look around and see if those people were there. Maybe it was the people who were nice to me. I don't know. But we would get back, and I just remember going back and standing around in the lobby one day, and I was like, hey, where's Mr. So-and-so? Because Mr. So-and-so was the guy who always showed up early, like before church opened, he was there. Like he had keys and stuff. He was always there later than it. He always, for everything. I thought he lived there. Maybe he had a little cot in the back room. But he was always around. He was super committed. He was involved in everything. I'd be like, where's that guy? And then it was like this tense moment. I didn't know it was a tense moment because I'm a kid, and kids don't know. Like they don't have a sense for that. But I'd be like, hey, where's he? And they'd be like, oh, you know. I was like, well, what does that mean? Answer my question. I want a straight answer. I can handle the truth. Tell me the truth. And it'd be like, oh, yeah. And I'd say, well, is he dead? You're not supposed to say that because sometimes my dad would rest his hand right on the back of my neck, and sometimes when I asked more questions, he would squeeze gently, not abusively at first. And they'd be like, no, he's not dead, Kris. No, he's not. And I'd be like, well, where is he? Did he move? No, he's still here. What are you hiding, old people? What's up? Well, did he go to another church? I didn't know you weren't supposed to ask that. That is very awkward at church. What, did he quit and find a better one? You're not supposed to say that. And they'd be like, no. And finally, I would keep asking, and my dad would keep squeezing, and I would keep going, Dad, ouch, that hurts. But where is he? To the point where somebody would say, well, he just doesn't, he doesn't go to church anymore. I was like, well, where's Mr. So-and-so? He was always so big in the church. And what happened? And nobody would tell the story, and I don't know the story. But the truth is, a guy who used to be so committed to Christ, so involved in his faith, so involved in his church and the people around it, all of a sudden now as I look back, he's not around anymore, and I go, well, what's up? You know that story. I mean, it may not be the same Mr. Somebody as me, but you know people from your world who once were super committed to following Christ. And it's not just they had a moment, but now it doesn't seem like that's really part of their game plan. Tell you what's even weirder. That if you were to think back, if you've been around here for a while, there's people who 4 or 5 years ago were probably really committed, not just to here, but to God. And if somebody came back today, they might say, where are they? And the answer, oh man, it's awkward. But they're just not kind of doing that now. Even weirder is if 4 or 5 years from now, we all got together the first week of August and just said, hey, remember that day? The weird guy came and spoke right after the really good music. Remember that day? Hey, where's so-and-so? And it may be you. But there's people sitting here in padded chairs today. 4 or 5 years from now, not just won't be in church, not just won't be on a Sunday, but honestly, their faith walk will be completely different. How does that happen? I know we're not supposed to talk about that. It's like that weird conversation. Just my dad right now, I can feel him. He's no longer alive, but in his grave, he's squeezing my neck. Like, dude. Well, it's not a new thing. It's been happening for thousands of years, that there comes times when frustrations hit a point where we go, I'm not sure I'm going to do it anymore. Maybe I give up. John chapter 6 is a chapter where it kind of deals with it. I love John chapter 6. Unfortunately, it's like crazy long. Like we're going to start in verse 60, but I really like the first 59 verses, but I thought you like lunch. So we're going to skip the first 59 verses, and you should appreciate that. That is me caring for you, even though I don't even know you. You're welcome. Well, for me, the first 59 verses, they tell us stories that we've heard before. They're little historic accounts of Jesus healing tons of people, and he fed thousands. And that was a big moment. The cool part is at the end, they had leftovers, so after church, they had food already. They didn't have to stop and get more. That's awesome. It's a story after that where his disciples go out on the water and there's a huge storm and he calms it. And they have, for many of them, maybe their first OMG moment, literally. They went, wow, we knew you were good. We didn't know you were, wow, moment. And then the next day, John chapter 6, a bunch of people come back around again. And these guys start saying to Jesus, hey, do some more of that cool stuff. Like, sprinkle some dust or wiggle your nose or say some magic words and fix people and more food, please. More food, menu, please. And Jesus says no. And it's awkward. And there's nobody to squeeze his neck. And it frustrates them. And they're like, well, if you'll do some great sign, then we'll buy into you. And he's like, no, you probably won't. And then he starts talking about stuff, and they kind of look weird at him, which people often did because they were talking about the surface, and he was way below the surface. And sometimes they just shook their head weird. And he said to them, you just want food. All you want is some food. But I literally am the bread of life. And they were like, what? Son of God said, what? And he goes, no, literally. What you're wanting is something that'll quench your thirst or your hunger for a minute, but I've come to give you something a lot more. Don't get lost in this temporary because I've got something bigger. And you don't want to follow me, you want what you can get from me. And I don't like that. And then it ticks some of them off. It's like driving down Highland when a maniac or an idiot are on the road, or all the lights turn red. They got frustrated. As a matter of fact, it's where we pick up in John 6, verse 60. That was 59 verses. There you go. Many of the disciples said, this is very hard to understand, and how can anyone accept it? He started talking about this stuff, and they were like, we liked you yesterday, but we don't like you today at all. How can anyone take that? I don't even know what to do with your words. And all I wanted was more food, and if you'd fix my neighbor, my wife, my son. And as a result, at this point, many of his disciples, they turned away and deserted him. And it's just a really awkward moment right in the middle of all of it. Everybody coming around, and they're kind of hitting high points, and they're having big days. And then some people just walk off. They're like, dude, we're out. Well, the 12 that followed him were like freaking out. They were like, this is bad. We were doing so well. Attendance has been up. People are loving it. We're important because you're important. Why do you have to go talking about that stuff? Why do you have to stir it up again? We were winning. Our approval ratings were spiking on all the polls. And then because Jesus was the master of a great moment, he knew how to build them. He makes this statement. I think it's one of the most powerful statements in the entire Bible. Then Jesus turned to the 12. That's his buddies, his friends, his little posse. And he asked, are you going to leave? Awkward moment. Talk about tension, like, these people, I don't like what you're saying. We're out of here. We don't like you. All we want was some food and a fix. So, are you, my friends, you heading out too? It's your invitation. If you want to leave, you can leave. Nobody's holding. What are you going to do? And then I don't know. I wish I had the video replay, but I don't. In my mind, though, there is a weird pause. Are you leaving too? And then moment. And there's a million thoughts going through their head, and you're hoping somebody says something, but it's not something stupid. Because in every group, there's somebody who always says something first, and it usually is. That's the person that shouldn't speak first, but does. Well, in this group, there was always a guy who spoke first, and often he said dumb things, but not this time. He made this beautiful statement. Simon Peter replied, Lord, to whom would we go? He answered his question with a question. That's really smart. You leaving too? You know what he didn't say? I don't want to leave. He didn't say that. I almost get the sense he was going, I would. Actually, right now, it would be great to leave. But then he thought a little bit deeper, and he go, well, who else would I go to? And listen to his words, because these are the words that kept him sane. You have the words that give eternal life. Listen to the finish. We believe, and we know you are the Holy One of God. You going to leave? Kind of like to. But where would we go? You're the only one who has what you have. And it's not just the things you do. You're the one who has hope for eternal life. We believe you aren't one sent by God. We believe you're the Holy One of God. What a brilliant statement. What a big boy thing to say. Somewhere he had swam from the shallow end to the deep end of the pool. Others left. I just want to tell you this. I think in every human being's life there will be moments, probably more than one, moments of time where you get hit with the reality of this is a time to stay or a time to go. And it usually will not be easy. It usually will not be light. It usually will not be at high points in your life. It'll be at low points in your life. And while it would be easy to judge Mr. So-and-so who's not there anymore, the truth is, until you've been in that spot, you can't judge the person in that spot because it's easy to talk about when you're not there, but hard to talk about when you are. A couple of things that maybe would help us, and I jotted down probably more for me than you, but since you're here, I'll share them. One of the things we have to be really careful of when we go through really difficult, really dark, really painful, really awkward times in our life is that we should not weigh God's goodness or God's faithfulness only based on our current reality. In other words, real time is a dangerous way to do things sometimes. If I decide, is God worth following? Is God worth believing in? Is God worth my commitment or my faithfulness? Just based on my current reality, my current circumstances, I am often going to make horrible decisions. I used to do youth work, and we would often tell our teenagers that you need to decide where the boundaries are for your life in advance, because in the moment, we're not very good deciders. The time to figure out what to do is not. For instance, if you're dating, we would say you need to figure out your boundaries. Because in the moments when there's a lot of rushing hormones, you don't always make great decisions. If you wait till then, I know where the boundary will be. And so we love talking to teenagers about stuff because it's easy, because it's them and not us, so we like giving advice. If you're past that stage of life, it's like, yes, that's what you should do. Now, sometimes what a 15-year-old guy would say the boundary would be a little different than if you're the parent of a 15-year-old girl. Very different boundaries. But the point was a good point. It was wise to say, listen, you need to know where are the starting and stopping points, and if you don't know, you'll only look back with regret. And in our lives, I just want to tell you, if you weigh out God's goodness based on what he's doing for me, it's what they were doing in John 6. Yeah, yesterday, whatever, dude. But what I want is now. You're not doing it now, I'm out of here. And if you treat God that way, you will not follow God for long. Because sometimes he is up to more than he lets us know in the moment. Maybe another way we could say it would be this way. Our faith must be built on God's proven track record over the long haul. Long before there was a me, there was a God, and he was good. And long after there is a me, there will be a God, and he will be good. And I have to trust in that, not just on my ability to figure out what's going on right now. Sometimes we say things like, that doesn't make sense to me. Maybe we don't say it that way. We say that doesn't make sense. But what we mean is that doesn't make sense to me, because I often feel like if it doesn't make sense to me, it can't make sense. Sometimes I forget that he is God and I am not, and his understanding is far greater than mine. It's hard to imagine that God would understand more than me, but sometimes in the moment, I just forget. And I go, well, what kind of God would? I don't ask it as a question, I ask it as a question, but I put an exclamation point, because what I'm saying is I don't like what you're doing, and you better stop it. You better stop it now. And you don't have to be a horrible person to do that. You just have to be a human who lives through tough times. And the truth is, some of you are right in the middle of that now. Some of you are just on the back end of that story and you're going, oh man, has that been true for me? And some of you who we don't know if it might be me or you are just in front of one of those situations. I'll give you one last little piece of that. It is really important for us to learn to remember in the dark what we've seen in the light. So I was sitting down here as the music is going on, and I'm a great worshiper of God when somebody else does all the work. Like if they'll show up early on Sunday and learn all the songs and practice during the week and show up with everything and the lights are good and there's just a little haze, because a little haze makes God more real, don't you think? I've always said that. I feel like when I think about God, there's just a little haze and a moving light. And when the lyrics are on there and everybody's in tune, except me, I'm a great worshiper, and what a gift they give us. Because my mind, I've had Netflix and Hulu and ESPN and even the SEC channel, and I've had crazy people, and I've had bills to pay and stuff and plans all week to divert my thoughts. And then here, you know what I wasn't? I wasn't responsible for any of those things. And in that moment, for he is the kingdom and the power and I was like, my heart was like, it is easy to believe God in that moment. But it is so much harder when none of that's there, when there's nobody playing underneath my story in soft tones. It's hard to remember then. And sometimes I have to remember when it's dark, the feelings and the understanding and the belief I had when it was light. It's like when you turn your light off in your bedroom and you go to bed, that even if you don't have a lamp by your bed, most of us do this, you turn the light off and then you kind of envision the steps between you and the bed. And if somebody puts something in between you and the bed, well, you say stuff. But I do that. It's just like it's 4 steps from there to there. It's like 1, 2, 3, and then you do one of those. Oh, there it is. You've done that. And what you're doing is you're remembering in the dark what you've seen in the light. It's why it is so important to do this together, because it gives me something to see when days are dark. And it reminds me that even if you are not doing what I ask you to do now, that you are still God, that yours is the kingdom and yours is the power. It's not just me. And even if I don't understand it, it doesn't mean it's not, because you are God and I am not. I have to remember in the dark what I've seen in the light. It's what gets me through till the lights are on again. Well, for me and my family, a bunch of years ago, we made a decision. My wife, at that time we had 2 kids. It's before my beautiful daughter was born. I only have one. It's not the beautiful one. That would be rude. We decided we would go to East Africa as missionaries. And so we went there and we worked in planning a church, starting a church with our team, and started a Bible Institute and got all kinds of things up and going there. It was exciting. Don't know if we helped anybody, but it taught us a lot. Just a few months after we got there, I got a call from my dad, and he said, "Hey, your mom has been diagnosed with ALS." And I'm like, "What is that?" "It's Lou Gehrig's disease." That made sense because I watched baseball. And I didn't know what that was, but I knew it didn't sound good, and the more I learned, the more I was right. And if you know anybody who's been through ALS, it's devastating and humiliating, and it's a mean disease. We kind of planned to be there another 4 or 5 years. Well, every day it got harder and harder for us, being apart from a hurting mom, being apart from a family who was carrying so much load. And eventually we just decided it was time to come home, and so we did. One of the things that happened for us when we were raising our support to go with our mission board, they liked us. We had cute kids. My wife would stand up and sing, and she was amazing. I'd stand up and say something stupid, and people would act like they liked it. They were like, "These are our next generation." That was been a while. You don't have to laugh right there. That was a moment you could have just gone, "Oh." But you didn't, and it hurt me right there. We'd always been like, they were like, "Yay, this is good." And when we came home, you know what we figured out? They like you more when you're going than when you're not going anymore. And all of a sudden, all these hundreds or thousands of people who supported, they kind of vanished. I was crushed. We thought that verse, honor your mother and father, is more than just doing what they say. It's honoring them with your life. And we thought we were doing that. We thought we were noble. They didn't seem to treat it so nobly. I just remember sitting with Leslie and saying, if this is our friends, God knows I don't want to talk to our enemies. If this is our team, I'm turning in my jersey. I just couldn't, what the heck? For us, it was just crushing. It made me really consider how much longer I wanted to be in that world. And so for me, it was just a huge crush. It made me question God. It made me question my commitments. It made me question my career. And the only way we survived that is I just remember day after day sitting in a house. Actually, we were here. My mom and dad lived here in Jackson. I just remember sitting in a house in Jackson. And morning after morning, we just had to go back and remember the God we served. And remember why we are who we are, why we do what we do. It's the only thing that got us through. I just want to say this to you. Everybody hits some moments, and if you don't have some, even if it doesn't, moments, if you don't have some things that are concrete, that are foundational, that are anchors for you, I'm just telling you, the wind's going to blow hard. It's going to knock you down. You know what? You'll be somebody's story of Mr. So-and-so. You don't have to be a bad person. You just have to be a person. I jotted down a few things that maybe would be helpful to you. maybe they're just for me, and if they are, just indulge. There's not some cumulative list. Maybe they'll make your mind think of something that would help you, but I'll just throw them out, and that's kind of how we'll wrap things up this morning. They all start with the words even if. Even if they never change, I will honor my parents, even though they're a little crazy, even though they're wrong, even though I'm grown, even though I'm frustrated, I will honor them because God gave them to me as my parents. I may not agree, but I'll honor. Even if I'm lonely, even if I'm insanely lonely, because I'm single or I'm single again, I know my temptation is going to be to jump. But I'm going to look up and not just hook up, because my contentment has to come from God. I know my friends are going to go, dude. But even if I'm lonely, I'm going to trust in Him for the right next thing. Even if it's never appreciated where I work, I'm going to show up, step up, and I'm going to work with integrity every day, even if nobody else does. I'm not going to get caught in the drama. I'm not going to shortcut. I'm going to be the one. If I never get an attaboy or attagirl, if I never get a raise, if I never get a promotion, even if, I'm going to. You know why? Because it's who I am. Even if he doesn't stay true or faithful in my marriage, even if she doesn't stay faithful or true in my marriage, I will honor the vows I made to God because I made them to Him first. And because I'm going to live a life of integrity, because that's who I am. Even if they don't deserve it. Easy to say. Even if my friends hurt me, even the ones I trust, I'm not going to quit trusting people, because God put me on this earth to share my life with those around me. And I'm not going to quit. Even if the diagnosis is bad, I will remember that God is good. Even if He's not fixing what I asked Him to fix in this moment, I will not assess His goodness based on my situation today. Even if my career takes a hit, I will remember that You are my provider. Even if Christians disappoint me, even if the church is less than perfect, I will remember that I am a follower of Christ, not a follower of Christians. And I'll be faithful. Even if I can't figure out why, I will trust You because You are God and I am not. And even if I've tried and failed 100 times, I've tried to kick this, I've tried to get past this, I've tried to do better 100 times, I will remember that God gave me breath today and I still have a chance to get better. And I will not quit trying. Maybe I could write 100 ways to say it, but the truth is, maybe the song will say it better than I can anyway. So let's pray together. So God, with a room with this many people in it, there's somebody who is right in the darkest spots, who have prayed and asked for, and You haven't done the thing they've asked for yet. They don't know what to do. God, may they find hope in You. Can You help them remember in their dark spot what they've seen in the light? Maybe even just a little reminder today. For those of us who are going to encounter stuff that we don't even know what they are, would You give us strength today? Would You help us get our even ifs figured out? So in that moment we are faithful. Would you not let us be somebody's story down the road of the guy who used to be? We ask it in the name of our Savior because you said we could and you would listen and you care. Amen. So may the God who always has been and always will be found in your life in the darkest moment. May your I don't understand yet find peace because he does. And he's not finished with you yet. Thanks.